Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and Goldsquadrongays is staying on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for the time being. Just gonna throw that out there. We are not paid to social media manage, so we're going to stay on those three platforms because I can handle Twitter, Bradley can handle Instagram, and our TikToks are technically on hiatus. I have one more from The Mandalorian that's taking a really long time to animate.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we try to add any more social media, I'm like, we're going to have to hire a social media intern because I can't do YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, Threads.
We don't have a Facebook. We don't have a
Facebook, nor a Grindr. We don't have anything, unfortunately. Although that would be an interesting marketing tactic. We might look into that.
Look,
but anyway,
I'm just saying, I might get more attention on a Gold Squadron profile than I get on my actual profile.
You know what I mean? Like that might be a thing to interact with people. Like it'd be like, hey, here's a great way to come see us.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, Jordan's art of me is prettier than I actually am.
So you're just going to use that as a profile picture?
That's what I'll use. That's my excuse for using that as a profile picture. Is my official account or whatever. We're staying on those three. We're not threaders. I haven't even gotten a Blue Sky invitation. I've put out multiple tweets. It's like, gosh, it would be great if somebody gave me a Blue Sky invitation. No one has given me one. And I don't like Hive. I haven't opened up Hive since the first week I downloaded it. So
I don't know what any of these words mean. So
Bradley's
anyway.
pulling this face over in the other window where he's got like one eyebrow quirked up and this kind of dumbfounded look on his face. It's beautiful. Before we dive into Tatooine Rhapsody, which is what we are covering today, I do have two things to address right up top. Firstly, I do have to issue an apology. I did not have time to record a little stinger for last week's episode, but I did say something on Twitter, and I'm saying it again here. We recorded our episode on the duel with Bonus Ronin on Sunday of last week, 2 weeks ago. Time, whatever. The point is we recorded it on a Sunday. Literally the next day, like 24 hours after we recorded, almost to the hour, our friends over at Fulcrum Transmissions dropped an episode with editor Tom, the guy who edited the Ronin novel. And it is absolutely stunning how well these episodes complement each other. Like I was listening to the Fulcrum Transmissions episode, I was like, we talked about that. We talked about that. And here's Tom giving us the answer. Like he actually explained where the voice came from, whose idea the voice was, which was a question that Bradley had. So I am highly recommending that if you liked our last episode on the duel / Ronin, go over to Fulcrum Transmissions and check out what at time of recording this is their latest episode about the Ronin with Tom to get a lot of insight into the process of creating this book and also different perspectives on this book. So I highly, highly recommend that. The second thing I have to address, we got some feedback on our last episode. And because of the nature of this feedback, Bradley and I have decided to commemorate a special section up front to it. I would like to welcome you to a section called A New Hope. This is the section where Hope Mullinex from J Guys and Jedi sends me feedback and I read some of it on the show. No pressure to Hope to send us feedback every time, but she sent me an essay on the last one. And I do want to read some of her thoughts out.
Yes, please.
Because I think they're worth addressing. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read some parts. So, the duel is the perfect icebreaker when it comes to visions. When most casual people think of anime and Japan, they probably first think of Sailor Moon, Godzilla, Gundam, and samurai. Opening with a samurai story is a nice way to ease a casual fan into this anime version of Star Wars. The behind-the-scenes featurette really confirmed a lot of my feelings about the duel, which has grown on me over time. While not my favorite, it feels like a full circle piece of media. Kurosawa was such an inspiration for George Lucas, and the creators of the duel discuss this in the featurette. It's like Star Wars coming home and getting into its roots, which is really fantastic. Then she describes the little droid as like Chopper's cousin, expresses disappointment that I didn't mention there's a whole scene of the Ronin naked in a hot spring in the comic, which, sorry about that, that's me. Points out that the Ronin novel does contain the first explicit trans Star Wars character, two of them, actually. And also, I believe the first mention of hormone, like explicit mention of hormones in Star Wars, which is pretty cool. And then, I didn't know this, she goes on to say that there's actually other manga adaptations for Visions, and I'm going to have to look some of those up. So thank you, Hope, for that feedback. I wanted to share at least some of it on the show before we dive into Hope's favorite, which is Tatooine Rhapsody.
Wait, that wasn't her favorite? All those notes and that wasn't her favorite?
The duel was not her favorite.
Oh
That's
my
why I
God.
made this a section, Bradley.
Right.
Because I know she's going to have thoughts on our coverage of Tatooine Rhapsody.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Well, I can't wait for that.
So thank you, Hope, for that feedback. And we are going to dive straight into Tatooine Rhapsody. Bradley, I am turning it over to you because I don't do shit on our episodes. I do whatever the fuck I want.
Yes, as Charles said, we're talking about Star Wars Visions Season 1, episode titled Tatooine Rhapsody, where a band with big dreams must save one of their own from Jabba the Hutt and Boba Fett. Charles, I'm changing our format slightly because I feel like it's appropriate.
You did not warn me about this in the pre-meeting, by the way.
I did not.
You
So that's
didn't
why
tell
it's
me
fun.
we were switching. If you pull some like and didn't like bullshit on me, I am
not doing-
hopping on a flight.
I'm not doing like and didn't like. I'm just going to
Okay.
say, we'll just do a quick, like, give me your best, like, overall, just quick thought. Just what did it make you feel like watching this episode? What was about it?
It made me feel happy in my soul and like I was 9 years old and watching Digimon on the TV again.
Good. See, just like a quick little blip about the episode, how you
there
feel
you go.
about it. That's
There
all I
you
wanted,
go.
you know? Yeah.
That's all you wanted?
Yeah, because, I wanted to get like a mood from you first, like what your thoughts about it kind of were before we started. Because I feel like with last time, I
episode's
kind of
over.
regret it.
We can go home.
Well, I kind of regretted last time because I kind of feel like we just kind of started talking about it and I didn't really get a sense of like, did you even like it? Or was it like something, you know what I mean? So I kind of wanted to, for the audience at least, be like, hey, do we like this episode? Do we not like this episode? Or was it just okay? So I want to kind of like
liked this episode. Did you like this episode, Brad?
I did. I did like this episode. I thought it was cute. It's definitely tonally like a shift. So I feel like whereas the first episode kind of was like a bam, like here's like a real like kind of, anime kind of thing. This is kind of more on the opposite spectrum of anime, which is kind of like more of the Studio Ghibli or like the cutesy anime, like Pokemon, Digimon kind of stuff. Like
put a pin in what you just said. Put a pin in specifically Pokemon and Digimon. Because I do want to bring that up when we're talking about the animation style and my impressions of it.
Ooh, okay, great.
Pin goes in there. We're gonna bring that up.
Alrighty. Well, then let's get into some of like kind of the stats of the episode. So it was directed by Taku Kimura, written by Yasumi Tarashi. That's my best guess.
Decent enough job. Shout out to those people.
And then this one, I wanted to add a section because this one has music in it. So the music was written by someone named Yoshi Akadiwa. And the song is called Galactic Dreamer. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Really?
Yes, because I wanted to. I mean, this was a more musical inclined episode, I guess. So I wanted to, give the writer of the song some credit. So let's talk about the
damn
studio.
Song, which has been stuck in my head all day. But yes, let's talk about the studio, Bradley.
Studio Colorido is what it's called. They are, of course, Japanese animation-based studio. It says it's a subsidiary of another studio called Twin Engine. So I didn't look up Twin Engine, but Studio Colorido was the studio that makes this episode. So there you go.
So I did my own research into Studio Colorido.
Okay.
Studio Colorido specifically generally is credited with making films and short films. Their Wikipedia page, which is the most succinct summary of what they're best known for, just lists films and short films, as well as some original net animation, including Pokemon, Twilight Wings, and Poketoon.
Which I have seen all of those. So actually, when I saw that on here, I was like, oh, that's interesting because I've literally watched all of those. And so
it feels insane. Like it feels like I'm going insane that Bradley, we're in an era where Bradley has seen something and has a point of reference that I don't have.
Right. Yeah, those were the only things I knew from their catalog, I knew nothing else. And for those of you who don't know, Pokemon Twilight Wings was just like a web series that they did that was based off the Sword and Shield era of Pokemon. So it was like quick little mini anime episodes. They weren't like part of the main series, but they were like cute, really high quality little short films, essentially, or net animation, I guess is what it's credited as. But they were really good. I liked them.
However, if you go over to Anime News Network, which is what I'm always checking after
Yes,
the
of
Duel
course.
episode, because Anime News Network will list not only things that they made, but will list everything they've been involved in. So a lot of times you have the main animation group doing a thing, but then other groups will be brought in to do additional work on it. And Studio Colorido doesn't have a lot of direct credits, but oh boy, have they worked on a lot of stuff.
Okay.
If you've watched an anime, they were probably involved in it. They have done in between, it's mainly in between animation and second key animation from what I'm looking at, or key animation, but they've worked on things like Attack on Titan. They've worked on a Code Geass OVA. They've worked on a Demon Slayer. They've worked on the TV adaptation of Erased. They've worked on the 2019 Fruits Basket. I'm just going down the list here. They worked on Haikyuu. They worked on Lupin the Third Part 6. So much stuff. So much stuff. And they have also worked on, in addition to Pokemon Twilight Wings, they did the in-between animation for Pokemon Evolutions. Does that one ring a bell, Bradley?
Yeah, so that is and again, it's like not a, I don't want to say like a short, it's not like a mini series or anything like that, but it's a collection of shorter animations. They're like 5 or 6 minutes long. They're like kind of web series kind of things. They're just kind of more interesting. I think they're more interesting than the main Pokemon anime, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, so it looks like their thing is that they're kind of like a support studio, that they generally will do additional animation work for all of these major, like, they also worked on Sword Art Online, My Enemy, but that's fine. I will forgive them for that.
Well, let's get into the cast because, or should I say the band, because
Oh, fuck off.
this episode
Fuck
had
off.
a lot of people in it, actually. I was surprised going through the list, and normally I would try to limit us to, 1 or 2 people, but unfortunately I feel like a lot of people need mentioning, and I have 5.
Okay.
Which are basically just the whole band. And then, of course, Boba Fett. But other than that, I thought, well, let me get Boba Fett out of the way because that's an easy one.
Yeah,
Tamora
who's
Morrison.
voicing? There he
Tamora
is.
Morrison does reprise his role as Boba Fett in voice. So I thought that was obviously worth mentioning, but we don't really need to like go super into that. But there you go. Tamora Morrison's back. Love that. That's kind of fun. Then we'll go down the list of the main characters. So we have our first main character, which is, or actually the focus of the short. His name is Jay. He is a ex Jedi / Padawan. He is voiced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and we know him from movies such as Inception, 500 Days of Summer, Looper. But this is not his first foray into Star Wars. He is credited.
I will feign ignorance of this knowledge. Tell us, Bradley.
Okay.
Where has he appeared in before?
He has appeared, he is credited as the voice of a character in Charles's favorite Star Wars film, The Last Jedi. He plays a character called Sloan Low. Low is an alien character who saw Finn and Rose illegally land their ship on the Canto Bight beach.
So he's the guy that comes in with the guards and's like,
right.
Yep, that's them. That's the shuttle parkers. That guy's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's because Rian Johnson, who wrote and directed the movie, always puts Joseph Gordon-Levitt in his movies when he can.
I did not know that.
If there's a chance for him to put Joseph Gordon-Levitt in a movie, he's going to do it.
Cool.
So he gave him that tiny little bit part in Last Jedi.
Gotcha. I just thought that was a fun fact. Like, oh, this is not his first thing in Star Wars. Next up, we have another amazingly famous person. Bobby Moynihan plays Geezer. He's the like kind of mini Hutt character. His name is Geezer. Bobby Moynihan, most famous for SNL, but he's done a bunch of animation voices, including The Bane of My Existence, Star Wars Resistance, where he does the character of Orca.
Hush.
Thought you would like that.
We will get you to watch that second season, Bradley.
We'll see. But
you are wrong. You are wrong about Resistance, and I will prove it to you.
So he does that, which I just thought that was funny because that's also another Star Wars veteran, essentially.
Fun, relevant fact for our show specifically is while not acknowledged on screen or by Lucasfilm in an official capacity for reasons, the character Orca is one of the first, at least written as being gay characters in Star Wars. So that's neat.
Moving on to another Star Wars alum, the character of Lan, who's that really cool kind of three-bodied red alien thing, is voiced by Mark Thompson. Now, some people may not know who Mark Thompson is because they don't know what audiobooks are. I do know what audiobooks are now, so I know who Mark Thompson is. And Mark Thompson is the voice of literally every single Star Wars book that ever existed, basically, or at least the good ones, because he is just so good at doing fucking Thrawn and doing all kinds of other voices, and he's just so great. He also, funny enough, I looked at his credits. The only other thing I know him for is doing the voice or additional voices on basically every Pokemon episode ever. And his list of characters he's done on Pokemon is so vast, I cannot name them all because half of them are at least 500 of the Pokemon that exist.
So Mark Thompson basically like has a death grip on Bradley's life.
He really does.
Is the vibe we're getting from this. Yeah, Mark Thompson is one of the main people that does Star Wars audiobooks. He does the Thrawn novels, he does the Thrawn Ascendancy novels, he does the mainline High Republic books, so the adult books.
Right.
Other people do the other books. There's many good Star Wars VOs, but Mark Thompson is probably the one you know. Because if you've listened to an audiobook, chances are good it's High Republic or Thrawn. And he did both of those. He's really prolific. I have actually watched him voice act in person, and it is stunningly good.
And moving on to our last character, voicing the robot droid, whatever we're going to use, K344 is the character's name, is voiced by Shelby Young.
We know Shelby Young.
Charles will definitely know this person.
We've heard her voice before.
I saw that. I was like, I looked at the list of all of her credits and I was like, what has she done? Oh, it looks like she's done Bad Batch. Oh, she's done all this stuff. Oh, she's done basically Leia in every single Lego thing ever. So I was like, okay, great. This is why Charles will know who this is.
She's their go-to Leia, and she's appeared in Bad Batch. We have literally just covered her in Bad Batch because she kept popping up in the last season of Bad Batch. They got her in the booth to record some character, and then they were like, hey, we got about five more one-off lines. Can you read these while you're here?
Just do them in slightly different voices. So yeah, that's our band.
That's our band, plus Tamara Morrison.
Right, plus Tamara Morrison.
I was gobsmacked to see Mark Thompson on here. Because I was like, I pulled up, because Bradley's been doing all the legwork for the off episodes. So I pulled up, I watched through the episode, and then I got to the castles. I was like, okay, good, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I know that one. Bobby Moynihan, I know that. Mark fucking Thompson is here? What? That's so cool.
And it was weird because I glossed over his name too when I was going through the thing because I didn't think it was the same Mark Thompson because his name's not super like, it's a normal name. It's not like a weird.
You haven't listened to Fallen Star as many times as I have.
Right. So I knew I recognized the name, but I wasn't like, oh, this is the same guy who does the audiobooks. Because if you go on like IMDb, it's not going to show you that. And so I saw that he did all the voices for Pokemon and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. And then I did a little extra research because, that's how good I am at this show. And I was like, oh shit, I'm glad I checked like the Wikipedia and everything because otherwise it was not going to tell me that he had done all the audio voices. And I was like, bullshit.
I even sent you a message last night. I was like, hey, there's one thing I really want to bring up about the cast. Oh, never mind. You've listened to Thrawn. You know who Mark Thompson is.
But I'm glad you did send me that because otherwise, I did double check, but like if you had not also sent me that, I probably would have forgotten. And I would have been like, because I didn't put it in my notes originally. And then I added it in my notes because I was like, oh, fuck, this is like a big Star Wars person. We need to talk about this.
Yes, I'm always keeping an eye out for these things. This may shock our audience, but Bradley and I do talk quite a bit outside of recording these episodes. So I was able to also nudge him in the direction of making sure he double-checked Mark Thompson. Yeah, this is also, for disclosure, this is my first time watching this with the English cast. I watched them in Japanese the first time I watched this.
Oh, so you would have never even known.
I would have never even known that, even if, because I didn't watch these in English originally. Which, speaking of things and songs in English, Bradley, you want to move on to the next section? Which
Okay.
may or may not be about the garage band indie rock song.
Oh, we can talk about the
It's
song.
probably not. It's about the animation, I think, is what's
Yeah, I was gonna go into the animation, but if you want to talk about the
Let's
song,
go
then we
into
can
the
talk about
animation.
Okay.
We'll put another pen. I keep like a thing of pens on my desk now to just
Gotcha.
pop into things to we'll address that later, we'll address that later, we'll address that later.
No worries. But yeah, let's talk about the animation. So, like we kind of said in the beginning, this is kind of more of a, I don't want to say kid-friendly style, but it's definitely more colorful, hence the name of the studio, which is literally like colorful in Spanish, I think. Or I think it's in Portuguese. I think that's what it says on their website. I don't want to get that wrong. But
The Colorido in the studio's name translates to rich in color or colorful in Portuguese and Spanish.
okay,
You were
so
doubly right.
I was doubly right. I love that. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, I really like the animation. I think it's really fun. It is colorful. And I like this style because this is more of the style. Like I've seen the Pokemon shorts before. I've seen like, this animation style is just like a cutesier Studio Ghibli kind of thing, which sometimes I find anime to be very harsh looking or too stylized sometimes. And I feel like if you want to get people like or more of a mass audience to watch this, I feel like this is kind of more of the style you need to go for because I think it's a little bit more accessible. It's kind of in that realm of did you ever see Ponyo?
I did.
Yeah, it's like that
It's kind
kind
of
of
like
more
that.
cutesy style anime. I mean, that one's a little more stylized, so I don't want to use that one as like a super example, but I feel like this is like a very almost like not a video game style, but I know they just put a movie. This studio actually just put a movie on Netflix. I think it's called Drifting Home. If people want to go on Netflix and watch it, it's I haven't watched it yet, but it's like one of their movies that they've actually released, and it's very same style as this, very good, colorful, very cute style. So I feel like that's what they wanted to go for.
Yeah, my impression watching it, and remember I put a pin on what you said about Pokemon and Digimon at the top of the episode. I'm going to pull that pin back out now. My thought as I was watching it was, oh, if you had asked me at age 8 to describe an anime to you, this is the anime that I would have described. Because it was exactly like, not necessarily like a direct like one for one, like this is exactly what anime that I watched as a kid looked like, but it was a combination of those same styles. And knowing that Studio Colorido has contributed to a lot of different shonen shows over the years, I look at it and I go, okay, yeah, this is something I could very easily imagine being on 4Kids,
Yeah,
or having been done by 4Kids, or
right.
having been on like Cartoon Network or something during like around the early to mid 2000s. And I was like, okay, The Duel was great. The Duel was a great opener. It was absolutely perfect. If you'd asked me to describe Star Wars anime, this is what I would have come up with. It's this bright, colorful, very exaggerated characters as well.
Yeah,
Like the models that they're using are very much like characters you would see in a traditional anime, or a traditional anime that's meant for TV and screened, for kids, like
right.
Pokemon, Digimon, any of these other different shows. I was going to say One Piece, but One Piece is not for children.
Yeah,
It's
no, I think it's
super not for
a little
kids.
too harsh, but
Super not for kids, that one.
yeah,
But this one is deliberately invoking that same style.
I agree.
And it's interesting to compare it up to my personal favorite anime of all time, Monster, which is on Netflix currently, and I'm watching through with my boyfriend. But it's interesting to compare it to that one because that one is like really rough. Like that one aired on Sci-Fi. So that one was intended to be like a semi-realistic kind of exaggerated thing. Whereas this one I went over and watched and I was like, oh, okay, that's an anime. That's what anime looks like to me.
Well, because like I've said before, I do not watch anime. I do not watch all those things. And to me, there's two different types of anime in my brain. And
Okay.
my one brain says there's like adult, I'll call it adult anime, where it's made for adults. So I think of like Naruto or something in that realm of like
You
it's
think of
violent.
Naruto as an adult anime?
Yeah, because it's like violent and there's usually blood and boobs and all kinds of weird stuff. Like it's
Okay.
very adult, right?
I
That's
was
what I
I
feel
was
like is
gonna
that.
use I was gonna use Monster as my example, but
Well,
yes,
I'm
that's
talking about something that I've actually heard of and not an anime because
I'm
I
gonna
haven't heard
keep
of real
bringing
anime.
this up. Bradley.
But then I
I'm
think
not
of
gonna stop.
that. I think of that because like adult style, and then I think of like kid style, which is like Digimon, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, that kind of whatever is very super accessible, like Americanized anime. I would call it honestly because even though it's not, I mean, obviously it's still made in Japan, but it's like very accessible to Americans because it's for kids. So it's very like in that realm. And I feel like this one kind of leans more towards the accessible, less than the like kind of more adult style animes, which are more like the
Yeah,
duel.
I think I'm no anime historian, but my recollection of shows when they were coming out in the 2000s, which this is very much like leaning on that Pokemon kind of export anime, that you're pretty on the money with the two types of shows that you could watch. You could either watch something that maybe was on Adult Swim or Sci-Fi, something
Right.
like your
Like
Death
Toonami or
Notes.
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like something you'd watch on Toonami. So something like your Death Notes that maybe you wouldn't like show your kids.
Right.
And then you'd also have another type of one that was exported that was, yeah, that Pokemon one that you would get a terrible English dub and they would change half the things around.
Right.
And it was basically, here's this thing that's pre-animated, we bought the rights for, we're going to get an English cast, slap something on there and go. And for a lot of people, one of these two things was their first exposure. If you're an American growing up in the 2000s, one of these two things is your first exposure to the concept of anime. Like that leads you into this gateway down, and before you know it, you've watched a whole bunch of them.
Right.
But I
Thankfully,
think
that wasn't me.
yeah, this one definitely feels more like the one that would be like, and I don't mean to say any of this is a criticism, right? I
No.
mean to say this all as like, this is doing a really good job of invoking that because as I mentioned at the top of the show, I felt a lot like what I did when I watched Digimon when I was a kid. It's fun, it's colorful, it's got these fun exaggerated characters. Yeah, the plot is kind of high stakes, but also, they're going to solve the problem with like a garage band battle thing. It's not taking itself too seriously. It's fun. You put it on, and 15 minutes later, you feel good about yourself.
Right. There wasn't like a dark ending where you were like, oh, this is depressing or anything. It was like, oh, this is fun and cute and whatever.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna be a band now, and that's great.
It is very like, yeah, shonen show that was exported to the US and dubbed by 4Kids in that way. Yu-Gi-Oh was another one, which that one's complicated. The American export of that was intended for children. Let's put it that way. But it's another one like that
where I don't want to get too much into that one because that one I feel like that one was a little. I think because of the way that the creatures were drawn and stuff was a little too scary for kids to an extent, or it's a little too like some of the characters a little sexualized, and it just depends on which ones they were.
A little.
So I feel like that one's
unedited versions.
I was gonna say that one's pushing the limits on if it's a kid's show or not. That one's kind of.
I'm running out of examples, Bradley. I can't just keep saying Pokemon, right? I don't have that much of a stable of anime to work with here. Like, I am not my boyfriend, who, once again, this entire series is an extended apology to for botching the first one. And he forced me to watch, what are we doing? Are we doing the twins next week?
Oh God, I don't even know. I don't know the order. I just
whenever we get to the twins, I will have a lot more to say about the twins. Mostly because he sat me down pretty much at gunpoint and forced me to watch some other shows. Because he was like, "Your opinion was garbage. I'm going to educate you."
Oh no!
So he made me watch a bunch of shows. But I liked the animation a lot. It was good.
Let's go into a little bit of the story because I thought that we didn't go too hard into the story last time because we talked so much about the book and stuff. But in this one, I want to talk about the story because they do something really, really interesting in this one, which was they introduced the idea in the beginning of Order 66.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, fuck. Well, this is going to be an Order 66 story. Well, this is interesting. And then they kind of turned that on its head, which I thought was interesting.
You just know that somewhere deep in the bowels of Lucasfilm, the like Dave Filoni that they have strapped up to the Emperor Palpatine arm from Rise of Skywalker, that they wheel from project to project, that was a reference to one of our first ever semi-viral TikToks. You just know somewhere in the bowels of Lucasfilm, Dave Filoni's like, I sense a disturbance in the Force. Someone who isn't me is animating Order 66. Uh.
Anyway, I thought that was interesting, but the reason why I brought it up, and I want to tell you why. So for
Okay.
two reasons. One is it's a compelling, interesting story of, oh, here's a Padawan or whatever who escaped. And then when they escaped, they did something else with their life, right? And that was, in this case, start a band.
They formed a garage band.
Formed a garage band. The other thing is the timeline of this. I know that none of these are canonical and they don't have anything to do with the actual story, but this is interesting, right? So he's a Padawan in our main character, Jay, is he's a Padawan who's escaping Order 66 essentially, and then he joins this band. And then a couple years later, one of his bandmates is being pursued by Boba Fett. And then it's like Boba Fett is working for Jabba, but like how many years later is this? He's not that much older, like, or at least animation wise, it doesn't seem visually like he's that much older. So this is like, I don't know. And then Boba Fett's supposed to be like a kid during, or a teenager maybe during Order 66. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Timeline wise, I was kind of like, this is weird. It seemed like it was happening during Return of the Jedi, and I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense because that's way too many years later. So I just didn't really quite understand the timeline of this story, but I was just thinking too much into it.
See, you know the problem with our Visions coverage, Bradley? You know the problem is, not only have you taken over all of the research duties, you've taken over all of my pedantic bullshit nitpicking. Because that was not a monologue that I nor I think our audience expected to hear from you. That sounded like it should have come from me. And that's not a compliment.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because I know that it's not canonical, so like it doesn't bother me that much. I just thought it was interesting because I like it clearly, like
about 3 or 4 years later.
Right,
clearly enough time has passed that Boba Fett is an adult. But if this kid's like 13, 14 during the Order 66 thing, and maybe he's like 17 or 18 and just drawn with a really youthful style, because again, this is emulating the style of like Pokemon and those other shows, and sometimes they'll draw people who are supposed to be like 17 or 18 as younger than they actually are. But yeah, I'd say probably 3 or 4 years have passed, maybe.
Anyway, I thought I would point that out because I thought that was very interesting.
This one could fit. Like, the thing about this one, there's some that they were like, we took the Star Wars brand essentially,
right, and
we've just decided to do something us with it. And then there's some that like they could fit, like this one, The Village Bride, and I was gonna say the twins, since it's explicitly set post Rise of Skywalker, but then I remembered the plot of the twins.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
But like, what was the Elder, I think, is the one with Dan and Tajin. Let me pull up Hope's feedback because she mentioned it by name. The Elder. The Elder is another one that could very easily fit like in Star Wars timeline.
Well, this one because it explicitly has characters. Yeah, I mean, it really does. And I thought that, and it said so. It's not only is it with Boba Fett and Jabba and Bib Fortuna and fucking on Tatooine, like all that stuff. Like it makes it ties itself so intrinsically actually to Star Wars that I thought it was an interesting choice because this. Well, if we're going in order of if you just watch them in order, this is the first one where we see them use actual characters from Star Wars, and that is risky, honestly, because I think, especially if you use characters like Boba Fett, you're like almost risking the audience going, well, that didn't happen, and that's not canon, and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, yeah, we know that they're not canon, but it's fine. Like that's not the whole point of this show. But I do think it is risky.
I'll say I was a little down on this initially because, you know, it started out with the duel, and this has the unfortunate problem of being the second one. So you watch the duel and you kind of get into the duel, and you haven't yet trained your brain that these are not linear episodes yet.
Right.
That you're going to be watching a different short film every 20 minutes. So when you watch the duel for the first time and you watch this for the first time, it's very much a mood whiplash. It is extremely a mood whiplash. It's like me and my boyfriend going from watching Monster to watching Konosuba, a magical explosion on this wonderful world. Yes, that is the full title of the show, and also the show is fine. But it's like us going between those two, and you're like, okay, my brain does not have time to adjust to this. Like, so by the time you get to like episode 4 or 5, now you're like, okay, I've gotten in the groove of this is going to be a different show every time. I'm kind of feeling this. I'm 2 beers in. Like, let's do this. So I think this one, especially on my first viewing, got kind of a short shaft.
Yep.
Since I put a week between watching the duel and watching this, and I just pulled this up on my computer last night. It took me 15 minutes. I watched the whole thing right before bed. I was like, damn, I feel great after watching this. This was fun.
It benefits most people to watch these shorts or all visions really separately. Like, do not watch them back to back to back to back to back. I think it does benefit to take a pause and like walk away and do something and then come watch another one or something like that. Or just watch one a day and, you know, and spread them out, because it definitely does. It's a mood change. You don't want to go from the darkness of the duel and then go to the lightheartedness of this one. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I see what they were doing when because you can tell, especially from the placement of some of these episodes, like how they did it. I think they start on a kind of darker one and they end on a darker one, but they kind of like fluctuate in the middle a little bit with some of these. But I don't know. I thought it was an interesting, just going from one kind of darker story to a lighter story. Like,
and I see kind of like the logic of how they've ordered these. But I will say, unfortunately, my first time watching this, I was a little more down on it. This time I appreciated it a lot more. I enjoyed it a lot more. I was more into the music the second time around. The first time around, I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, because this is like well, I don't want to say this is the first time we've had music in Star Wars, but this is the first time.
Yeah, this is the first time we've ever had music in Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that, but it feels more like this is the first time music was a deliberate plot line of a Star Wars, where it's like, yes, this is like a part of the story. And Jedi Rocks doesn't really count because that was just like in it, but like
wasn't even really in the movie originally.
Right.
It was in the special edition forward,
exactly.
And we're now
so
just
that doesn't
cursed
necessarily
with it forever.
So that's why this one's interesting. And I thought that was great. We have a little musical number in Star Wars. That's another thing. That's never a bad thing, I guess.
Well, and also the first time I watched this, I expected like this beautiful, polished, like, oh, this is so like, you clearly recorded it in a studio with people who know what they're doing. And then we got the song and I'm like, what in the fucking teenage garage band bullshit is this? And this time I watched it and I'm like, I mean, this is teenage garage band bullshit.
Yeah.
That's the point.
That's the point. Yeah.
That's the point of it.
Yeah, because I thought, you're right. I thought it was supposed to be like, oh, they were going to go record this in a studio somewhere and like officially make like a song and da-da-da. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Why would they do that? It's supposed to be a rock and roll band where he just kind of like is singing this just off the cuff, like he's not prepared kind of thing.
Yeah, like it's clearly like one of their songs that they have memorized, and like they have a garage band and they get together every second Tuesday and they jam out for like 2 hours until one of their moms comes out and yells at them to pack it up. It's getting dark and the neighbors are going to call the cops again if you don't stop this immediately. I say this as someone who was in one of those type of garage bands when he was a teenager. It very much is that feeling.
I like it. I can just imagine you've got kids. When they showed the kids on Tatooine looking at like the footage or whatever from the pod race, I can imagine them being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go follow them now on like Facebook or whatever, Instagram, and listen to the band now. Go on their website, buy their t-shirts and stuff, and then you got kids walking around on Tatooine with the band name on their t-shirt. Which, by the way, I have that fact. The band is called Starwave.
Yes, they mentioned it in the show.
Yeah. So that's the name of the band. So
I
just thought that'd be funny.
Starwaver uploading to fucking Space SoundCloud.
There you go.
Download our Space EP off of Space iTunes.
And you know Jabba streaming Spotify. It too, because Jabba liked it because you could saw his little tail was flapping. So he was like, he probably went on Spotify right after and downloaded it.
Yeah, we did see the Boonta Eve arena, and one also thing that was really interesting too was the occasional little bit of CGI in this. Like it was something I noticed on my second roll around, because like the Boonta Eve Stadium, when they do that,
the way it zoomed in,
the way it sweeps around, and I think it's the same shot as Phantom Menace, the way it comes down and around.
I have to go back and look at that.
I didn't compare it because I just thought of it right now, and I do not come to these podcast recording sessions prepared when we are not actively covering a show and I don't have to do a fuck ton of research. But I do think that is the same shot that it comes around and reveals the like Boonta Eve starting line.
I'm gonna have to look that up and see if it's. I'm gonna have to rewatch the scene from Phantom Menace and just kind of try to compare and contrast a little bit.
One thing I thought was really interesting in this is how many weird aliens they had in it.
They had some new designs. Yeah, some weird
I think they had a couple of new designs in the background, but I also clocked some of the like classic designs. Like one of the executioners at the end is a Klatooinian. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of aliens in the crowd that are recognizable. Right. Like I did really like that as well, that they had those background details, that they put a lot of care and love into those background details, and you can tell that the people who designed this and directed it really like Star Wars, because they were like, yeah, let's put a Klatooinian. Who's going to say let's put a Klatooinian in there? Somebody who has watched a lot of Return of the Jedi is going to put a Klatooinian in
all the skiff guards and stuff. And I was like, oh, those are all the same thing. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, there's even Gamorreans too at one point. And I was like, oh, yeah, you can see all of them. Actually, what's funny is one thing I've taken away from Visions is that I feel like some of the character designs I want them to use in some of the more canonical or live action stuff now. Because like the character of Lan, Mark Thompson's character, his design is so weird and interesting. It's like the three bodies on the one person. Like I was like, why this doesn't make sense in terms of like why would his species evolve like that? But I love the fact that he's like triplet, but like all attached to each other and all facing different directions. It doesn't make any sense, but I love it.
We'll get to it when we get to the Ninth Jedi. But we do actually have a design that originated from Origins in For Light and Dice. In Origins. Why did I say in Origins like it's fucking Dragon Age? We had a design that originated in Visions, actually in For Light and Dice. One of the main player characters is a droid from the Ninth Jedi, and we'll get to them when we get to them in the Ninth Jedi.
Well, not to go on too long in this episode, but I want to ask you as we kind of wrap this up, what are you thinking about Tatooine Rhapsody? Do you think could we see this again somewhere?
Could we see this again, and how would I want to continue?
How would you want to see it?
I want an EP.
You want a musical?
I want this continued as an EP. I don't want it continued in a visual form. I want it continued as an EP or an album. I would like to be able to pop in a Star Waver track when I'm feeling like Star Wars, instead of having to resort to Christmas in the Stars.
Gotcha. You just want to listen to what was I said? Galactic Dreamer. That's what I
just want to listen. I want to listen to Galactic Dreamer in the car.
Okay.
But that's how I would continue it.
You want the studio version?
I want the studio version of Galactic Dreamer. Yeah, I want to hear their album. I think their story is pretty much concluded by the end of it. Yeah. But the potential of like a Star Wars indie rock band is really interesting to me.
I like that. You know what? I'm gonna agree with you. That the story is concluded. I don't think they need to make any more shorts or books or anything about this group of characters. I think that the story is told. They're just going to be a band forever, and Jabba's going to endorse them, and then they're just going to get rich and famous across the galaxy. So
before the Inquisitors show up,
right, and kill them. I love that story for them. However, I think that a good way to continue their story, or like at least see this again, is I would love to see them as like a cameo in the background of, say, Book of Boba Fett would be interesting. Like if they were to do a Book of Boba Fett 2 and then maybe have them playing in like a cantina in the background. Ooh, that would be so cool. Fun. That's kind of what I want to see. I want to see like a cameo of them in a Star Wars thing. It can be a TV show, it can be a movie, or any kind of scene where this particular band is playing in the back of a scene. I want to see that. I think that'd be funny. And then you could just have Joseph Gordon-Levitt as playing the main character in the background as an adult. You know what I mean? Like he's like, oh, I'm an adult now and we're still rocking out. Like, you know, I just think that would be fun.
Love it.
There you go.
Are we done?
Yeah, we're done. So any final thought?
It was good. I liked it a lot better. What are we doing next week?
Next week? Oh god, I should probably look it up. No, I do think it is the twins.
I'm 98% sure it is the twins. We are professional podcasters.
Yeah, we know exactly what we're doing.
We know what we're doing.
But we for sure know what we're doing next week. Hold on, it's loading. Let's see. Yes, next week is the twins. So stay tuned for that.
Yay! Pluggables! As previously mentioned, you can find me when I am not here over on For Light and Dice, a Star Wars TTRPG podcast set in the High Republic era. We just recorded 2/3 of our season finale the other day. And Bradley, when I tell you I was shook, I was shaken. I was emotionally devastated. There were peaks. There were valleys. I screamed at one point. It's not caught on the mic because I was muted at the time, but it did happen. So definitely be tuning into that. If you are not currently tuning into that, now would be a good time to start marathoning it. And Bradley, for you, we are plugging Still Temptation Island. This is the shitty reality TV show that we're plugging.
This is the reality TV show that we are plugging, yes.
Contractually, Bradley has to describe it in at least neutral terms. I can describe it as a shitty reality TV show because they're not cutting me any checks. Which USA Network, if you do want to start cutting me checks for all the promotion I'm giving you, I will start pretending to like reality TV. I am a corporate whore, and I will gladly spread praise for money. Anyway, you can watch Temptation Island on USA Network as it's airing, and you can also watch on Peacock. It is now streaming. And that's it. I think we're done. Bradley, run the socials. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gays. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gays. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gays. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gays, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gays.
I'm not going to include this part. He plays Orca. I thought he plays the blue guy.
I'm going to double check.
I don't know his name.
He's only listed as the voice of Orca.
Who does the voice of the blue guy? Not blue guy, green looking dude. Is that not him?
Josh Brenner is the voice of Niku. The green guy on the poster.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought it was him.
Josh Brenner is who voices him.
Okay, well, I'm glad I'm cutting this out. Okay, anyway, I just didn't want to keep going with Orca if we mess that up. So, okay, I'm glad we got that right.
We didn't. I know my resistance. Please continue.